Dr. Graceffo is the author of several books about China and Southeast Asia. He has a PhD and an MBA, and as if that wasn't enough, he's currently completing a second PhD in economics at Shanghai University, where he specializes in China outbound investment and Trump-China trade. I was talking to Mr. Graceffo earlier about what an interesting month he must have had given the Trump tariffs. And he currently works as a lecturer at Shanghai University, so let's extend a warm welcome to Dr. Graceffo.
Wow. Okay, guys, so I really enjoyed listening to Simon's talk. And I want to explain to you the arrangement of the speakers tonight, the reason why they had Simon first and Mike last, so they could go rich person, poor person, rich person. Okay, so my story is not quite as exciting as theirs in terms of what you wind up with at the end. Simon said something very interesting. He talked about failure. We talked about failure, we talked about success, you know, what have we achieved in our lives? Now for me, and I was young once, I don't know if you can picture that. I was your age once, I was younger than you once, and I had dreams. And if we talk about a list of achievements, gold medal in the 1988 Olympics for swimming, a black belt from my first martial arts instructor when I was 12 years old, Forbes list of the 200 best money managers in the United States before I was 30, and a best-selling book. All things that I failed to do. But you have dreams when you're young, and please don't ever let anybody tell you not to keep those dreams. Your dreams are what keep you going. It's what keeps you going. It's what gives you your vision, your hope for the future. Simon told me he had a lot of setbacks while he was building his company, and I bet if you stood up here for 3 hours, you could tell us another story and another story and another story. You're going to have the setbacks. Don't ever give up on your dreams, whatever they are. Right? That's a really important point. The other thing I want to talk about, one of my favorite heroes on this earth is Thomas Edison. And Thomas Edison, there's an anecdote. It's probably not even true, but I like to pretend that it is. Thomas Edison, when he invented the light bulb, the one that actually worked, the one that he actually patented, was the 300th attempt that he had to build a light bulb. And people said to him, they said, Edison, you failed to build a light bulb 299 times. What kept you going? Edison said, no, I proved 299 times how a light bulb is not made. And when he eliminated all the options, there was one left, and that's the one that worked. Okay, so I've proved a number of times how not to become wealthy. No, but you're going to have failures in life, and again, don't give up. Just go, go, go. Now, some of you are doing your degree here at Fudan in China. Some of you are doing your Chinese studies, and I know those of you that are doing a degree, you run into walls all the time, don't you? You run into all kinds of problems. Things you couldn't even have imagined in your country. You probably came here, you didn't think everything was going to be roses, but you didn't anticipate the problems that you actually hit. And that's another really important point in life. You can spend your time worrying about the problems that you know about, but actually, most of the things that hit you in life are going to be things you never knew about. So actually, maybe it's even better not to worry about them at all, right? Just deal with them when they come. Something else about Thomas Edison, I don't know if it's really Edison, I'm just making up names now. Something about Thomas Edison, definitely true, you can Google it. He said that success comes when preparation meets opportunity. A really interesting thing about opportunity just like illness, just like the global financial crisis in 2007, just like any problem, it just knocks you down. Just like opportunity is something that you never see it coming. You never see it coming, you never know when it's going to come, and it's actually impossible to prepare for. Opportunities come to you on a daily basis, but you are not ready for them, so they pass you by, and that's okay. So for example, if I was here today and I said to you, listen, we need a senior PhD economist who's published 1 million papers, and we're going to pay you $400,000 a year, is anybody interested? Now, do any of you match that description? I hope not. I would lose my job. Take my job. No, you don't match that description. So when I tell you this, you're not going to go home tonight and say, oh, I missed an opportunity. Right? It's only an opportunity if you're ready for it. Okay, so you prepare yourself. Simon asked you guys if you're learning Chinese. It's one of the most important things. We'll get to that in a minute. Let me just tell you very briefly about my situation in China. So how did I get here? I was an investment banker in New York City. And when 9/11 happened, I was in Manhattan on the day that 9/11 happened. They evacuated all the buildings in Manhattan, and we were standing out in the street. They locked up all the buildings, they locked up the bridges, the tunnels. There was no way to get off the island. You forget, when you live in New York, you forget that it's an island. And suddenly it became an island. I'm like, oh my God, we're trapped on this island. And there's the World Trade Centers, and they're burning, and there's this smoke coming. And I also spent 7 years in the military, and I did also anti-terrorism training. So we were standing in the street, and I said, well, there's definitely a terrorist event. And there's this white powder falling out of the sky. So as an ex-soldier, I thought, this is some type of biological agent. We've all been infected, and they've locked the bridges and tunnels so we can't leave and infect everybody else, and we're all going to die. And that's what I thought. So I went to St. Patrick's Cathedral. I sat down on the steps of the cathedral, and I closed my eyes and I waited to die. And I didn't die. I said, okay, well, I'll give it a couple more minutes. And a couple more. And I'd say 20 minutes later, I was a different person. So what I realized on that day was you have a lot of dreams, and you can get distracted from your dreams. I had a lot of dreams that involved sports and martial arts and writing books and doing all these things. I'd been a student in Germany for 4 years studying linguistics. I love languages. And here I was working in investment banking, which I also love. I love finance. I love economics. I don't love finance. I love economics. But that was the closest job I could get that actually paid money. And so I was working in finance, and all those other dreams got put away. I'll do them someday. And on that morning, September 11, 2001, sorry, I get a little choked up. On that morning, I thought, wow, anything I put off till tomorrow may not happen. It was over. There are no more tomorrows. But when I woke up on September 12th, and I was still alive, I said, wow, now I got a chance to go do all those things I always wanted to do. So I've written some books, but I just want to put these two up here because I want you to buy them. No. I put these two books up here. I love these two books sitting next to each other because they sandwich my life. All right? I came to China the first time right after the terrorist attacks in New York City. I gave up investment banking. I wanted to come to the Shaolin Temple since I was a little boy. I wanted to go study Kung Fu at the Shaolin Temple. I used to watch a TV show with David Carradine. He died under very disturbing circumstances. I did not kill him. But I always wanted to go to the Shaolin Temple. But I did in 2003. Simon's very brave. He came to China in 87. Even in 2003, though, it was not easy to just hop on a plane and come to China. So I went to Taiwan, which was like China Light. And I went to Taiwan, I studied Chinese, and I studied Kung Fu, and then I came to China, I went to the Shaolin Temple. So the first time I was ever in China, 2003. And that led to, roads lead on to roads, right? And there's another road, and a fork in the road, and a fork in the road. Next thing I know, it's like 10, 11 years later, I'm in Malaysia. I'm a full-time professional fighter at age 45. I'm getting in an MMA cage, and I'm fighting to make a living. And at night, after the fight, I would sleep in the gym, because that's where I slept, next to the cage. And I woke up one morning and went, this has been cool, but maybe I should think about getting back to a career. And I wound up getting a job at Shanghai University. I had 2 postgraduate degrees, luckily. Got a job at Shanghai University as a lecturer, so I flew to China to be a lecturer at Shanghai University. I wanted to keep training, so after I was in China, when I got to China, there was no way for me to train. I'd got to be a full-time professional athlete, and I'd been a full-time athlete since I was like I said, like 12 years old, right? So when you stop doing that, it leaves a huge void in your life. So when I was on Wall Street, I put all that energy and time into making money, you know, with the stocks and bonds, investments. When I got to China and I was teaching at Shanghai University, suddenly my life was very easy. I had nothing to fill that void, and I said, well, I'm going to study Chinese, like at some insane level. Right, and I just studied Chinese. I kept a diary. I was doing like 5 hours of listening a day. I was doing so many, like 20, 30 hours a week of study. And I walked into Shanghai. I heard there was a Shanghai Jiaotong University, there's a sport university right up the street here. I walked in off the street and I said, you know, I used to be a professional fighter. I'd like to keep wrestling. Is there any way I could pay money to come here and wrestle? And they said to me, oh, your Chinese is really good. I go, what country are you from? I go, oh, I'm American. They're like, oh, you're American. Do you have a master's degree? I said, yes. They go, we can give you a full scholarship to come here and study wrestling and get a PhD. Okay, dumb luck? Yes. Opportunity? Yes. But how many people, and I don't want anybody to feel bad that you can't wrestle as good as I can, but how many of you right now, if somebody made you that offer, you'd be like, wow, this is the greatest opportunity, right? It was only an opportunity because it just happened to fit these two bizarre skills that I had. I could speak Chinese and I could wrestle. I was like, and I had a master's degree. Like, so I took this scholarship and I got my PhD from Shanghai Jiaotong. So because I was a foreign student, my advisor said to me, and obviously everything's in Chinese at that university. You have to write a dissertation in Chinese, defend it in Chinese. So because I was a foreigner, my advisor said to me, look, I want you to have your dissertation written a year before the defense. And I had to turn it into him, and then I went through this painful, horrible process of repeated mock defenses. I think I had 12 or 14 mock defenses where I would go in, present my dissertation before a panel, and they peeping wall. They'd like tell me all the things I had to change, and I'd go change it. So on the one hand, it was very stressful. On the other hand, I suddenly had a lot of time because I spent years just writing my dissertation, and now suddenly I had nothing to do. And then I remember, like, you know, I always wanted to be an economist, and now suddenly I had some free time. So I started writing economic research reports about China. And I thought, you know, I'd been to business school, but it was 30 years ago, and I go, I need a current qualification. So I found out about this thing at Shanghai Jiaotong University about the China-MBA. So I went and enrolled in that. So during my PhD, I finished my China-MBA, and I wrote about 20 research reports on China. And then I started getting booked as a speaker. That's how I met Mr. Mike. Started getting booked as a speaker about the Chinese economy. About 2 weeks before my dissertation defense at Shanghai Jiaotong, I went to Shanghai University, School of Economics, and I applied for a scholarship to do a PhD in economics. And they accepted me on the strength of having the China-MBA and having published so much already. So I started a second PhD. And since then, I've been writing and writing and writing. And so anyway, this book is the English language book version of my PhD dissertation from Shanghai Jiaotong. So it's about wrestling, and then this is the book I just came out with this year, and now I'm teaching this course. I just taught it at Fudan. We just finished last week. I taught this course here at Fudan. It's on Chinese economy. So I like these pictures because it like sandwiches my life, and it just, you're going to find your way. Your way is different than mine. If you want to wrestle, I'm happy to teach you. Okay, I'm not excluding you from wrestling. Okay, but that may not be your way. You will find your way. I don't know how to make furniture. Okay, I don't know how to do what Mike does. Mike makes money out of money. I don't know.
I don't know what I do either.
Mike doesn't know what I do. Okay. So what is a China economist? So I do ongoing research on the China economy, and I specialize in Trump-China economics. And Chinese government think tank calls me and on a regular basis whenever Trump tweets something like really crazy. They call me into,
that's every day.
Which is almost every day. So I've made more in the last year, you know. So yeah, so every time something crazy comes down the pipe, they call me in to interpret it for them and then to write research reports on it. So, as I was explaining to you earlier, so like last summer, there was the big Trump and Xi Jinping met in Florida, and they ironed out this new China trade deal. Well, that kept me busy for like a month reporting on that. What is the new China trade deal? How does that relate to blah, blah, blah? There was a weird throwaway in that agreement, which is really odd. I'm reading this agreement. U.S. can now get into banking services and financial services in China in some limited way. China's allowed to do this and that in the U.S. That all kind of made sense. And at the bottom it was, oh yeah, it was like they threw it in at the bottom and said, oh yeah, and the U.S. can now sell liquid natural gas to China. Now, I was in the military and I was also a merchant seaman, all right? So when I was a merchant seaman, I got certified for liquid natural gas ships. So that's the only reason I knew what this thing was, because I'd been in the merchant navy. And so I read that and I went, that's really weird. What's liquid natural gas got to do with China? So I go online and start finding out China is the world's biggest importer of liquid natural gas. The US is not the world's biggest exporter. The world's biggest exporter, China's partner, was Qatar. Wow, that's really weird. Qatar. That's strange. 2 weeks later, open the news. Saudi Arabia, the US's buddy, has just accused Qatar of supporting terrorism. And now they want to put an embargo against them. They can't export liquid natural gas. So, being an economist, it's cool. It's like being Sherlock Holmes, right? So I predicted that. I predicted that after it happened. I predicted it after it happened, and I was right. So, when you start looking at the global economy, so there's two kinds of economists. There's what we call quantitative people. These people that are really good at math, which is all my Chinese classmates. And then there's me. Okay, and I do more political economy. My Chinese classmates, I swear, at the PhD level, an economist at the PhD level is like a minor form of mental illness. We have a professor that comes in, there's 3 blackboards, right? He comes in, he talks to the blackboard, and he writes nothing but numbers. And he's talking the whole time. And then these are the blackboards that slide up, so he slides them all up. And he goes back. And he does that for 45 minutes, and then it's break time. I swear to God, he just talks to this board, and the only thing on that board is numbers. In fact, it's not even numbers, it's symbols. I would be happy to see a number once in a while. Like, what the hell does this have to do with Qatar? Right? So, while he's doing that, which has nothing to do with me, so I can't, I'm happy that he's doing that. I defend his right to do that. So while he's doing that, I'm looking around the room with my classmates, and I'm seeing maybe 4 or 5 out of 30 that don't have a notebook, that are not recording the lecture, and they're watching him do that, and they're doing this. They are reciting in their heads, as he's drawing, they're reciting the equations and what the outcomes are going to be. It's insane. I mean, this is like the movie A Beautiful Mind. Like, these people are geniuses in mathematics. So that's one kind of economist, and you could be that guy. So the other kind is what I do, okay, which is more like political economy. So I get to study a lot about the relationship between China and the United States. So what do I do on an ongoing basis? I write these papers, I write books, teach at a university. Speak at a lot of conferences, and I get to do some consulting for companies and a little bit for governments. Moving forward, I'm hoping there's going to be more. So, takeaways. Now, you guys are at Fudan. Fudan is harder, it's a lot harder at Fudan to get scholarships than it is at other universities in China. So, for those of you who are interested in going on to your master's or your PhD, the advice I'll give you, you can apply at the good schools, but you should apply at the middle schools like Shanghai University, provincial schools like that, or city schools that are, they would be the equivalent of a state university in the United States. Not the greatest thing in the world, not the worst, right in the middle, but a lot easier to get scholarships. Americans, and I'm sorry for everybody else, Americans, every university in China has 10 scholarships that have to be given to Americans. And by picking the least popular university, you're going to be Johnny on the spot. I met a guy from, I don't remember, somewhere in Scandinavia, but I can't remember if it was Denmark or...
That's a big difference.
Yeah, I know, I'm so sorry. Wait, which country where they're blonde and very orderly? No. So, he was like 50 some odd years old, and you can only be, I think, 35 for the scholarship. He was like 50 some odd years old, and he was studying at the Optometry University of Jiaotong on a full scholarship. He did not speak a word of Chinese, and nobody at the university spoke a word of English. I go, how did that happen? He's like, I don't know. I walked in off the street, and next thing I know. So when you go to an unpopular university, you can always get a scholarship. So that's for everybody. There's Shanghai government scholarships, China government scholarship, and the universities have their own scholarships. Okay. Don't be John Q. Now, John Q in the United States means anybody. It's like an anybody name. But actually, in my presentation, John Q is an actual person that I know. And I don't like him very much. Don't be like him. Okay. This is a guy, when Taiwan was throwing scholarships at foreigners, he took a scholarship in Taiwan to do the MBA. Chose the English option instead of the Chinese option. I said, John, for the rest of your life,
You're going to go work in a bank, you know, in Canada. You're going to be working in finance. The rest of your life, you're going to be the guy who studies in Taiwan but doesn't speak Chinese. Think about that. They're going to call. Why are they going to call you for the interview instead of somebody else? Well, you studied in Taiwan. We need a Taiwan expert. Do you speak Chinese? No. All right, we'll hire the guy from New York. You know, so don't be that guy. Okay, but another point. If you are a high-ranking, first of all, in China today, if you're going to work, like as opposed to having your own business, if you're going to work, China today generally only hires people with very high levels of skill. So back in the early 2000s, there were a lot of foreigners who were able to get jobs just because they showed up and they were foreign and somebody hired them, particularly if there was a foreign manager that was hiring people. Today, it's much more competitive because Chinese people, the average education of Chinese people has increased dramatically. Does anybody know how many Chinese students graduate every year from university? Yes, sir.
9.5 million.
Okay, 9.5 million. 9.5 million. It takes so long to read all the names. Okay, so a number of years ago, that was not the case. You had a whole generation of people who didn't go to university, right? So now everybody does. So little by little, the companies have been phasing out the foreigners. Have you heard of Jared Cushman? Okay, Cushman Real Estate Company, one of the biggest real estate companies in the world. From what I understand, in China, they have, I forgot how many thousands or tens of thousands of employees. They're down to 3 foreigners now. And that's a foreign company. So, and it used to be, probably in 2001, if you went in there, everybody above the lowest rank was probably foreign. And then little by little, they promote, you know, the local Chinese and then the foreigner job. So to get a job today, you have to be very qualified. If the company is paying you a bunch of money to be very qualified to do your job, they want you to do that job as efficiently as possible, which means they don't want you struggling with the language. So if you meet, for example, engineers that are here with Ford and they're building cars over in Fudan or whatever, these guys make sick money, right? They generally don't speak any Chinese at all. And they surround them with younger Chinese engineers who speak English. And companies, look, I'm paying you this much money. It works out to, you know, $1,000 a day or whatever it works out to. I don't want you struggling with your phrase book, you know? So if you're going to use Chinese in your job, you have to be spot on. Your Chinese has to be at a high level, all right? So that's the takeaway. If you want to differentiate yourself by speaking Chinese, it has to be at a very high level, all right? Mike, I know you meet with clients and you meet with investors. Can you imagine meeting with an investor and you're like, ni hao. Ni yao tou zhi ma? I'm sure they will say yes. Okay, remember too that acquire a job skill, all right? Language is not a job skill. Language is added on top. That's about like saying, you know, I'm good with computers, I'm good with Excel. Today everybody's good with computers. Everybody's good with Excel. Okay, this is not a job skill anymore. This is on top of your job skill. Get a solid job skill. And then you can have your language on top of that. All right, in general, I tell all my students this very important point. Companies need you to solve problems and fill specific holes in their personnel roster. What does that mean? So you're going to go home, right? You're going to go home at some point, and your family, your friends, and remember that they love you, right? Which is nice. But don't listen to their advice, because they love you, right? Oh, you're great. You're going to get a great job. You're going to go home, and they're going to say to you, you speak Chinese, you lived in China, you'll get a $1 million job. Really? Really? Doing what? What's my job title? Look in the want ads, look in the job feeds. You don't see anything that says, we need a person who lived in China and speaks Chinese, and that's their only skill. There's no such thing. There is no such job. So you need to get qualified to fill a hole that that company already has. And when you get to a company, you want to be proactive. But proactive doesn't mean launching your own product line or your own services or telling the company to change what they're doing. Because remember, there's a manager and he has a hole and he needs to fill that hole. And he sees you and you have the skills and he can fill this hole. And then you go, oh, I don't want to fill this hole. I want to start my own thing and use the company's money and resources. Even if he said yes, now he's still got to fill that hole. So all you've done is added to his problem. So think about that. You want to get qualified. Qualified to do the job the company needs you to do. Okay, this is very important. Write this down. Learn everything. Learn everything. Read everything. Read everything that's ever been written about your subject. Okay, are there any PhD students in the room? Okay. One. All right. All right, so when you're a PhD student, one of the first things you do is you sit down and you read literally everything that's ever been written about your subject. And the idea is because you're going to learn that as your base, and then you're going to build on the world's body of knowledge. Now, when I worked on Wall Street, that's exactly how I approached it. I came in and I read everything. You talk about long hours, I kept a sleeping bag in my office. This is not a lie. My office was in Rockefeller Center in New York City where they have the skating rink. I kept a sleeping bag under my desk. I would sleep for about 4 hours at night. I would go in the bathroom, wash, change clothes. My dry cleaning was delivered to the office, so I could just change clothes. I would walk downstairs, and they used to film the Today Show at Rockefeller Center. So I'd go there and watch them filming the Today Show, and that's how I got my news. Okay, this is before internet. So I'd go like physically watch the Today Show, and I used to buy my breakfast on the street. And why did I do that? So I could spend 20 hours a day learning everything. You need to learn everything. Okay, whatever it is you want to do. Mr. Simon started his presentation off by giving you 3 books to read, and he said, oh, there's so many more. Okay, Simon read up on competing in China, how to do business in China. You need to do this. You need to have the school here, but you need to do on your own as well. Learn from others. Surround yourself with good people. This is so important. Keep in touch with people that you meet that are in industry, people that are working. Keep in touch with them. Talk to them. Find out what they're doing. What do companies really need? What do companies want? We are in actually a very good economic time. Okay, it is. It's a good economy. Anybody tells you it's a bad economy is probably just sour because they can't get a job or because they bought Bitcoin when it was at 20,000. Okay? We're in a good economy. You can get a job. You will get a job. All right? But it's very competitive. Okay? When I went to school, when I was in my bachelor's degree, very few, I won't say maybe 10% went on to do a master's, if that. Today, when I talk to my nieces and nephews that are the same age as you guys, it seems like almost 100% of kids in the United States, if they do the bachelor's, they do the master's. It just seems like it's a given now. Everybody's doing the master's. So it's becoming very competitive, right? So you've got to differentiate yourself. Okay, establish yourself as an expert. Do not wait until you're in grad school to start publishing. Nobody tells undergraduate students to publish. Why shouldn't you publish? Are you writing papers in your classes? Are you studying? Are you writing papers? Write papers, study, publish those papers. You have to do them anyway, right? Get a mark for your education, and then you can publish them, and now you get a publishing credit. Start establishing yourself as an expert on something crazy, whatever it is. Pick a niche. Okay? So Simon said that the sandwich market, right, and the coffee market in Shanghai, it's very competitive, right? There's like so many competitors now. Maybe you find some weird little area in there and you become the expert on that. Okay, there's a woman that's doing British pies in Shanghai. Like, that's huge. No one thought, British pies, who thought about that? You know? So start researching these markets, whatever. Those of you who want to be entrepreneurial, you can do this. And those of you that want to work for a company, you should still be entrepreneurial. Still think about, you are a product. You are making yourself into a product, and you're selling that product to a company, and you want that company to pay the highest price for that product that they will, right? And you can only justify that by differentiating yourself. If you already published as an undergraduate, that's going to help you. Speak. Volunteer to be a speaker everywhere. Get paid, don't get paid. Doesn't matter. Speak at libraries. Speak at student organizations. Speak anywhere. Just speak. And when you speak, record it and put it on YouTube. And then the next company calls you. And the next one and the next one. Right? And volunteer. When you come to an event like this, volunteer. When you join an organization, volunteer. So you can put on your resume, you know, I was the, I was the person who booked the speakers, I was the person who organized this and that. But those are all skills you'll take with you to a company. It'll help you make more money and help the company. Speak up, don't be shy, look for opportunities, create opportunities for yourself. Okay? You can create opportunities. So when I got to Shanghai University 6 years ago, And this is not sucking up. It's going to sound like sucking up. It's not. Find out who's in charge, who has the most budget, who has the most employees, who has the most power, the most authority. Find out what projects that person is interested in and help them. You have to work at the company anyway. You've got to do something at that company, right? You might as well be working for the most powerful person in the company. Might as well be working on the flagship project. So volunteer for those projects. Every project, every opportunity that you hear about, you find a way to make it match your skills. All right, so there's a few Americans in here. Americans do something weird. When an American meets another American, the first thing we try to establish is a geographic connection. I'll say, where are you from? But they'll say to me, where are you from? I go, I'm from Brooklyn. I go, where are you from? They go, California. Now, Brooklyn and California are very far apart, right? They're as far apart as Brooklyn and London, right? So then I'll go, oh, my aunt's second cousin used to see a therapist who retired in California. Now we're like twin brothers. Look how close we are. All right, you need to do that. You need to approach projects with that. When somebody says, I have a project, right, and it's about something you don't know anything about that project, find a way to know something about that project. Find something that you've done before that matches that project. And every project that exists on this planet is going to need organizers. They're going to need recruiters. They're going to need budget. They're going to need spreadsheets. They're going to need, maybe they need advertising. Maybe anything. Also, any opportunity you have to write. And again, I'm biased towards writing because this is what I do. But anytime you have the opportunity to write something for the company and put your name on it, huge. It's huge. You can be a very low-level employee, but you helped write a letter that went out to the whole company, and they let you put your name on there as the author. It's tremendous. You've now established yourself as the expert on that subject. Okay, has anybody heard of Peter Navarro? Okay, he's one of these guys that I have to read about every single day. So he wrote a book called Death by China, right? And he's Trump's #1 advisor on trade with China. So he's a bit hawkish, if you will, on China, right? But Peter Navarro's backstory is that he established himself as a China expert. Peter Navarro has a PhD in economics. He was my economics professor, online professor for macroeconomics, right? Even as an online professor in pre-recorded lessons, he didn't like me. But Peter Navarro is just a normal economist who decided, I want to be a China expert. He made himself a China expert. Now he's Donald Trump's right-hand man for China. He just picked out some issue, God knows, random, out of the air, and said, I'm going to be the go-to guy for that issue. And he made millions with it. Okay, and what I like about this story is Peter Navarro is rich and he's a PhD. See? So those don't have to be mutually exclusive, okay? So you can be a PhD and still be rich. So what did he do? He took skill sets that he already had. He goes, geez, I'm a PhD, some of you are master's degree students. You wrote a dissertation, you wrote a thesis, it's the same thing. Companies need you to do reports, right? You find something in your skill set that you can sell to the company. Wow, we are at the end. Okay, thank you very much.
Originally written as a short course for foreign university students visiting China, this book is a must-read for anyone trying to make sense of the world's second largest economy. From the formation of the People's Republic of China in 1949, to the economic transformation to socialism with Chinese characteristics under Deng Xiaoping, the Chinese economy continues to grow and develop under the current leadership of President Xi Jinping, whose 13th five-year plan and Belt and Road Initiative seek to forever change the global economic order. Read A Short Course on the Chinese Economy by Dr. Antonio Graceffo, available from Amazon.com in both Kindle and paperback.